And now, ladies and gentlemen, presenting to you someone who will certainly give you pleasure. He gives us tremendous pleasure every time he appears on this program, and we're delighted that he's with us again this year. The one and only inimitable Mr. Norm Crosby, ladies and gentlemen, right here.
Thank you. Isn't that nice? Hey, do you realize how important it is that all of us be involved in this wonderful telethon? This is an upper in a time of downers. I really mean that. With all the misconstruction and disgustry that's going on in the world, we need things like this. This cleanses us of our impunities. It gives us stigma. It makes you look up and be proud, because we need stuff like that. You have to get involved. People have to care. I was just talking to one of the executive procurers from Caesar's Palace, backstage, through an interpreter, and we were discussing that. You have to care. People have to get involved. I said to him, what do you think is wrong with people today? Is it ignorance or just apathy? You know what he said to me? He said, I don't know and I don't care. Do you realize what's going on in our world? Do you realize that the United States government sold guns to Nicaraguans to raise money for the contrary? And the guy that sold the gun said he never got paid, and the fellow that sent the check said he sent it, but he didn't sign it because some triggers were missing from one of the shipments. And then to fix it, they fired a guy who didn't even work for them. Does that make sense to you? And they're picking on people. They had a congressional interrogation. You must have seen it on TV. Congressmen, wise men of senility who sit on benches and make incisions that affect our lives, are judging who's doing right and who's doing wrong. Are we yo-yos? Are we supposed to forget that last year these were the same guys, do you remember this, got caught in a sectional scandal with the kids that bring them the messages? Does anybody remember that? And they denied it, and one of them went on TV and he swore it was a lie, and he promised to turn over a new page. Do you remember that? That's absurd. They're picking on this kid, Oliver North. Why? Because he stole and he cheated and he lied a little bit. So what? Can I tell you something? Jerry will tell you. Casey knows. A guy that lies and steals and cheats, you don't make him a scapegoat. You make him an agent. And his secretary, what's her name? Fannie Hill. She's a genius. She's a genius. This girl, believe it or not, put secret documents in her brasserie. Did you read about that? And shredded them by jumping up and down. That's genius. This is what's happening in our lives. This is why we need to pay attention to this telethon. Gary Hart, a young, brilliant politician with a great future, wiped out of the picture. Why? Because a girl came to visit him and decided to go home through the window. So what? That's got to be the biggest cover-up since Tammy Baker's face. I never heard of anything like that. You must have read about the evangelist. I mean, that scares you. I'm sorry. Case, what's the name? The one that talks with his mouth. Oral, right. Oral. This man told his congregation that if he didn't raise $8.7 million, that God was going to take him home. Now, I don't know where he lives, but this is important. And he almost didn't make it. And a guy from Florida that owns a racetrack, right, sent him a check for $1.6 million and saved him. And he fell on his knees. He said, "Thank you, Lord, for saving me." And there was a flash of lightning and a roar of thunder, and a deep voice said, "Wait till the check clears." And you must have seen, anybody see Nightline when Ted Koppel interviewed Jim Baker and Tammy Faye? Did you watch that? Do you remember? Ted Koppel said to him, "Jim, did you take any money that belonged to your ministry?" And Jim Baker said, "If you remember, if you wrap yourself in the arms of the Lord, then those who seek will find, and knock, and it shall be opened unto you, and thy eye will see, and thy ear will hear, and thy nose will run." And Ted Koppel said, "Jim, I didn't ask you that." And she's sitting there, Tammy Faye with the eyelashes, hi there. And she put her hand on his knee. Do you remember this? And she said, "My husband is not a wife swapper." That I believe. I mean, you got to have something to swap. Thank you very much. You're wonderful. Thank you, Jerry.
Norm Crosby, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Norm. Oh, I'm glad he said that. The Muscular Dystrophy Association is pleased to acknowledge the citizens of Canada for their participation in our Labor Day Telethon. We welcome them for their support in the fight against muscular dystrophy. Thank you, Canada.